Are you confused on which stabilizers to use for machine embroidery? In today's video, we're going to talk all about stabilizers. Hi, I'm Ashley, the Monogram Mompreneur, and I teach you how to do embroidery, applique, and give you small business tips and tricks to help you be more successful. In today's video, we're going to talk all about stabilizers and how to choose the right stabilizer when doing machine embroidery. So first thing I want to cover is when you choose a stabilizer, it depends on two things. What kind of hoop you're using, whether you're using a hoop or a frame, as well as the type of blank you're embroidering. So when we talk about the type of blank you're embroidering, you could be embroidering a canvas bag, a golf polo, a scrub, a baby beanie, a kid's applique shirt. All of those things require a different type of stabilizer to make sure that you get the best embroidery stitch out. The quality of your blank does make a difference in how you stabilize. A more quality blank, you won't have to use as much stabilizer as something, for example, for an ARB blank shirt, you might stabilize it a little bit different than a Garanimal shirt from Walmart. So those things come into play, and in next week's video, make sure you hit subscribe. We're going to talk all about where to source your blanks from to make your business more successful. So back to the stabilizer. Choosing the stabilizer depends on whether you're using a hoop, a frame, or some other kind of embroidery tool to embroider with. So how you stabilize a shirt with a hoop probably is going to be different than how you stabilize with a frame. So we'll go over the different types of stabilizers for both. Okay, so the first stabilizer we're going to talk about today is sticky stabilizer. Sticky stabilizer is used when you have a fast frame, which these are for a multi-needle machine, or if you want to float your shirt, bib, hat, book bag, something on your hoops, you can use sticky stabilizer. So it's not just exclusive to frames. But sticky stabilizer, what it does is obviously you can see I've used this, but it's sticky. You put it on the back of your frames and then you adhere it to your shirt, so that way you don't have to clamp anything like a hoop would. Because there are two pieces, there's no top piece to a fast frame, you just use sticky and adhere your product to it that way. Sticky stabilizer can be used with hoops, and you would just hoop it and then pin your item to it. I know a lot of people use it for floating objects, like if they're monogramming a ribbon or hard to hoop objects, they will float with sticky stabilizer. So I use sticky stabilizer pretty much every time I embroider because I use fast frames. So sticky stabilizer, this is my favorite. I'll link it below. This is the Sulky brand. I have used other brands before and I have not been impressed. So the Sulky is definitely my favorite brand to use. So the next type of stabilizer is Tearaway Stabilizer. You can get it in rolls or pre-cut sheets. I like to do the pre-cut sheets just because it makes me more efficient when I'm doing a bunch of items. Tearaway Stabilizer, there's a rule in the embroidery world, if you've been around long enough. It says, if you wear it, don't tear it. And while I think that is a pretty good rule of thumb, there are some things I use tearaway with that are worn. So it depends on the quality of the blank. Typically I use tearaway in conjunction to my sticky stabilizer with my baby products, so baby beanies, baby gowns, that sort of item where I don't want the bulk of a cutaway or a poly mesh. I will use, especially on baby bibs and blankets where you don't want the stabilizer showing. In my opinion, it's not good for applique because if you wash the item and dry, it will shrink up and will not cause the best look for applique shirts. But I always use it as a secondary stabilizer, slip it under my frame when I'm appliquing a shirt, and I use it as a secondary stabilizer. So typically I use sticky and tearaway with pretty much every item I embroider. And tearaway is like it says, it tears away on the back. You have to be careful though when you're removing it from the item you embroidered not to pop any stitches. So I like to hold, especially fonts and letters and monograms, you want to be careful not to rip the stitches out. So tearaway is a must-have. Alright, next on the agenda is Cutaway, and I just got a huge bolt when it was on sale at Joann's. This is the Pellon brand, but I'll link some of my favorites in the description box below. Cutaway is a thick, I would say it almost feels like a canvas, not quite a felt, but it's a pretty thick stabilizer. A lot of people use this for monogramming shirts, applique shirts for children. They use Cutaway, a medium weight Cutaway, a lot. My preference isn't Cutaway. It does work great with a vintage stitch because you don't want to use tearaway on some of these blanket stitch, bean stitches, because you really rip the stitches out. And those kind of embroidery designs need a little bit more bulk to them to keep them from getting all wonky and misshapen during the washing. So Cutaway, I would say, a lot of people use it for applique shirts, monograms. You can use it for scrubs. There's a heavier Cutaway for like golf polos or those dry fit polos. But Cutaway is something you probably need to have in your arsenal of things, especially for those denser stitch outs or the vintage looking ones that need more stabilization. Okay, next on the list is this is called a NoShow fusible poly mesh. I get it in the pre-cut sheets just because cutting it out each time I applique a shirt gets a little overwhelming. So I get the pre-cut sheets. And this has been my favorite for monograms. This takes the place for me personally of a Cutaway stabilizer because it gives you the strength and durability of like a Cutaway, but it's like it says NoShow, so you don't have that big white ring and real stiff. It's flexible and it fuses to the shirt, so you don't have to worry about it shifting. So you fuse it to the shirt and I will stick it to my fast frames and I'll slide a piece of tearaway underneath, and that's how I do all of my applique shirts. It gets the best look for me personally, and I really recommend using poly mesh for applique shirts, monograms, anything that you want more stabilizer than a tearaway but you don't want to use the bulk of a Cutaway. This is a great option. So the NoShow fusible poly mesh, they also offer it in like a nude color, a black color, so they have quite a few options for this. The next thing, I buy this puppy by the bolt. This is called Heat and Bond Light. This is an iron-on adhesive, and what this is used for, you see it's got kind of a texture to it. What Heat and Bond Light is used for is when you're appliquing a shirt and you have a piece of fabric, you adhere the Heat and Bond Light to it, and it creates almost this like plasticky, filmy, it makes it stiffer, and it creates a real smooth cut so you don't have a lot of fraying, and it just creates a clean cut. And then you iron it down before the satin stitch, and it adheres the fabric to the shirt, and that way you don't have wrinkles, ripples, and it creates a clean applique. So I would definitely recommend Heat and Bond Light if you are going to be doing applique. It is a must-have for prepping your fabrics before putting them on your shirts. Next is Water Soluble Stabilizer, and it kind of looks a little bit like saran wrap. Don't use saran wrap. I will link it below. This is kind of a must-have for if you're doing like fleece blankets, stockings, anything with a nap or a pile or fuzz. You're gonna want to have this, and it kind of creates a barrier between that fabric and the embroidery and the needle, so that way it doesn't get caught, and it creates a nice clean stitch out. It really finishes off your products. You remove this obviously after you stitch it out, and you just kind of use your finger and you can remove the water soluble stabilizer. I don't personally like to leave it on for customers because some of them might not wash, especially like the birthday shirts, before they're worn, and it creates a shiny film on it, so you want to make sure you get all that off. I don't prefer to use a washcloth or water. I just don't want to add water to the shirt, so I always just take it off with my finger. And then lastly, this is called Tender Touch, and some people call it, there's another brand called Cloud Cover. This is just like an overlay for your monogram or applique, so that way it's not hard and the threads aren't scratching the skin. This is especially used in baby products and children's products. I always apply the Tender Touch to all my baby products and applique shirts because I just feel like it finishes the shirt and creates a smooth, non-scratchy effect for the child. I know some people don't like to use it because it comes off, and I would say try this certain brand and use some pressure with it. Round your corners, apply pressure, and when I apply Tender Touch, it usually lasts between 6 to 8 washes for me personally, and I wash everything and dry it in the dryer. You're not including it on your customers' things because they're afraid they're going to complain. I would say try a little bit more pressure, push a little harder, and get it to adhere better, and I feel like it really finishes your products. So what are your favorite stabilizers to use? Comment below your favorites. Do you wear it and tear it, or are you a hardcore cutaway kind of gal? Please hit subscribe because next week we're going to talk all about where to source your embroidery blanks for your business. And I'm Ashley, the Monogram Mompreneur. See you next week. Thanks for watching.